Liam Parker's taxi was a constant presence on the streets of Maplewood, a town that hummed with activity yet hid quiet corners of stillness. At 52, Liam had spent a decade navigating its twisting neighborhoods, familiar with every shortcut and pothole. His yellow cab, though a little battered, was always clean, a reflection of the pride he took in his work. Liam lived alone in a modest apartment above a laundromat, the low rumble of machines his steady background music. His days were long, and his earnings just enough to scrape by. Yet he found comfort in small moments: the sunrise spilling over the Maplewood Bridge, the warm nod of a polite passenger, or the rare quiet stretch of an empty street. It was on a brisk autumn afternoon that Liam's routine was interrupted in a way he never expected. He had parked his cab outside the community library, sipping from his dented thermos and watching the world go by, when he noticed a small figure emerging from the line of trees across the street. The boy couldn't have been more than 7 years old. A bright red backpack hung loosely on his shoulders, and his tousled hair fell over wide, darting eyes. His steps were hesitant, his gaze searching the street as though looking for someone or something. Liam straightened in his seat, a knot forming in his chest as he watched the boy move closer. The child's small hands gripped the straps of his backpack tightly, his posture tense. When the boy stopped a few feet from the cab, he hesitated for a long moment before finally stepping forward and knocking softly on the window. Liam rolled it down, leaning toward him with a gentle smile. "Hey there, buddy, you okay?" The boy shook his head, his lip trembling. "I'm lost," he whispered, his voice shaky and barely audible. Liam's heart sank. He unlocked the passenger door and gestured inside. "Hop in. We'll figure this out together." The boy hesitated, his eyes darting nervously to the street behind him. Liam could see the fear written all over his small face. "It's all right," Liam said softly, keeping his tone steady and calm. "I'm here to help. My name's Liam. What's yours?" "Ethan," the boy stammered, his voice trembling as much as his hands. "Well, Ethan, it's nice to meet you," Liam said. "You've been really brave coming to ask for help. Come on, let's get you warmed up, and we'll sort this out." After another pause, Ethan climbed into the cab, curling into the seat and holding his backpack close. Liam turned on the heater, the cab filling with warm air that seemed to ease some of the tension from Ethan's small frame. "All right, Ethan," Liam said gently. "Can you tell me anything about where you live? Maybe a street name or something nearby?" Ethan shook his head, fresh tears welling in his eyes. "We just moved here," he said, his voice breaking. "I don't know the street. But our house is blue, and there's a big tree in front. And there's a park near it. We went there yesterday." "That's a great start," Liam said, nodding. "There are a few neighborhoods with parks and blue houses. I think we can find it." Ethan sniffled and nodded timidly. As Liam pulled the cab into the street, he decided to keep the mood light. "So Ethan," he said, glancing at him in the rearview mirror, "what's your favorite thing to do? Do you like playing outside, video games, reading?" Ethan hesitated before answering. "I like soccer," he said quietly, "and peanut butter sandwiches. My mom makes the best ones." Liam chuckled. "Peanut butter sandwiches and soccer? Sounds like you've got good taste. I used to play soccer when I was your age. Not sure I was very good, though." That earned a tiny smile from Ethan. And for the first time, Liam saw a flicker of the boy's true personality peeking through his fear. They drove through one neighborhood, then another, slowing whenever they passed a blue house or a park. Each time Ethan would shake his head, his small shoulders slumping a little lower. At one point he let out a shaky sigh. "I'm sorry," he murmured, staring at his lap. "I should know this stuff." "Hey, no need to apologize," Liam said firmly, glancing at him in the mirror. "You're doing great. Moving to a new place is tough. And you were brave enough to ask for help, that's all that matters." Ethan nodded slightly, though his shoulders remained hunched. As twilight began to fall, Liam decided to try one last neighborhood before reassessing. They turned onto a quiet street lined with tall trees, the golden light of the setting sun filtering through the leaves. "That's it," Ethan suddenly exclaimed, sitting up straight and pointing out the window. "That's the park. I remember the slide." Liam pulled over and parked, the swing set creaking gently in the evening breeze. "Great job, Ethan," he said, giving the boy an encouraging smile. "We're close now. Let's see if we can find your house." Ethan climbed out of the cab, his earlier fear giving way to determination. He scanned the nearby houses, his eyes darting from one to the next. Just as Liam was about to suggest retracing their steps, Ethan gasped and broke into a run. "That's it," he shouted, pointing to a blue house with a sprawling oak tree in the front yard. Warm light spilled from the windows, and the muffled sound of a dog barking greeted them as they approached. Before they could even knock, the front door flew open, and a woman rushed out, her face a mixture of relief and panic. "Ethan," she cried, pulling him into her arms. "Mom," Ethan said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. A man appeared in the doorway, his face lined with worry. "Where have you been?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I got lost," Ethan admitted, looking up at his parents. "But Liam helped me." Both parents turned to Liam, their expressions a mix of gratitude and emotion. "Thank you," the woman said, her voice shaking. "Thank you for bringing him back to us." "It's what anyone would do," Liam replied humbly. "Please, come inside," the man said, gesturing toward the open door. "You've done so much already, but let us at least thank you properly." Though Liam hesitated, their sincerity convinced him. As he stepped into the warm, inviting home, he couldn't help but feel that this chance encounter was only the beginning of something unexpected. The warmth of the house enveloped Liam as he stepped inside, a comforting contrast to the crisp autumn air outside. The walls were adorned with family photos, colorful drawings, and the occasional sticky note pinned to a corkboard by the door. The scent of something sweet, vanilla or cinnamon, wafted through the air, mingling with the faint hum of a television in the next room. "Please, sit down," Ethan's mother said, motioning to a couch covered in cheerful throw pillows. "You've done so much for us tonight. Let us thank you properly." Liam hesitated but finally obliged, settling onto the couch. "Thank you," he said, glancing at Ethan, who was now clutching his mother's arm, his earlier fear replaced by a shy calmness. The man extended his hand as he sat across from Liam in an armchair. "I'm Michael," he said firmly. "And this is my wife, Rebecca. You have no idea how grateful we are." Rebecca nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "Ethan's a brave kid, but tonight..." She trailed off, glancing down at her son and brushing his hair back gently. "I can't even imagine how scared he must have been. Thank you for helping him." "It's what anyone would do," Liam said, his tone modest. "I'm just glad I could get him home safely." Michael frowned slightly, shaking his head. "That's the thing. Though not everyone would have taken the time to help a lost child like you did. You went out of your way and we'll never forget that." Rebecca disappeared into the kitchen and returned moments later with a tray of tea and cookies. She set it on the coffee table, then handed a steaming mug to Liam. "You've probably been driving all day," she said. "Please, take a moment to rest." Though Liam hesitated, he couldn't deny the comforting aroma of the tea or the warmth of their hospitality. He took a small sip, the heat easing the chill in his bones. "Do you always work this late?" Rebecca asked, sitting beside Michael. Liam nodded. "Most days, yeah. Cab driving's not the easiest job, but it keeps me busy." Michael tilted his head. "How long have you been at it?" 10 years, Liam replied. "I started not long after my parents passed away. It's not glamorous, but I've met a lot of interesting people over the years. That's one of the best parts, hearing their stories." Rebecca's expression softened. "Do you have family here?" Liam shook his head. "No, it's just me. I never married." "Guess life just got in the way," he smiled faintly. as though trying to downplay the solitude in his words. Rebecca and Michael exchanged a glance, a moment of quiet understanding passing between them. "You deserve more," Rebecca said gently. "The way you treated Ethan, calm, kind, patient, it's not something we'll forget. People like you make the world better." Liam cleared his throat, slightly embarrassed. "I just did what anyone would have done." Michael leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Liam, I run a business here in town, Parker Freight Solutions. It's a logistics company, and we've been growing fast over the past few years. I've been thinking about hiring a private driver to help me manage my schedule, but I never found the right person." Liam blinked, caught off guard. "A private driver?" Michael nodded. "I have a lot of meetings, clients, and trips to manage. Having someone reliable behind the wheel would make a world of difference. After tonight, it's clear to me that you're exactly the kind of person I'd want for the role." Rebecca chimed in, her voice gentle. "We're not asking you to give up your cab entirely. Michael's schedule is flexible, and we're happy to work around yours. It could be a way to bring in a little more stability without changing your life completely." Liam's instinct was to refuse. The cab was more than just a job, it was his way of life. The thought of stepping into something so different, even part-time, made him uneasy. "That's unexpected," he said after a moment. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to decide right now," Michael said quickly. "Take your time. We just wanted to put it out there." Rebecca nodded. "No pressure, Liam. We know this is a big change, and we don't want you to feel obligated. We just want to give you an opportunity, because you've already given us so much." Ethan, who had been quiet until now, tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Can Liam come to my soccer game?" he asked softly. Rebecca smiled and ruffled his hair. "We'll see, sweetie." Liam chuckled. "Thanks for the invite, Ethan. Maybe I'll take you up on that." When the clock chimed 8, Liam rose to leave, not wanting to overstay his welcome. Rebecca walked him to the door while Michael lingered behind with Ethan. "Liam," Rebecca said quietly, her voice full of emotion, "I hope you know how much this means to us. You brought our son home. We'll never forget that." Liam tipped his hat with a modest smile. "It was my pleasure, Ma. Take care of each other." As he stepped out into the chilly night, the sound of Ethan's laughter echoing softly behind him, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that this day had marked the start of something new. Driving home, he replayed Michael's offer in his mind. The idea of being a private driver seemed like a world away from his current life, but the sincerity in their voices and the respect they'd shown him lingered in his thoughts. By the time he reached his small apartment above the laundromat, Liam had no answers, only the quiet realization that his life might not be as fixed as he once thought. The following days passed in a blur of routine, but Michael's offer remained in the back of Liam's mind. Between fares, he couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to take on such a role. The thought of stepping into a private driver's position, even part-time, felt like uncharted territory. One afternoon, as Liam waited for a passenger near the Maplewood Bridge, he pulled out the folder Michael had given him. Inside were neatly typed details about the job: a flexible schedule, generous pay, and the assurance that he could continue driving his cab as well. "It's not giving something up," Liam murmured to himself. "It's just adding something new." Still, doubt lingered. The cab wasn't just a job, it was his independence, his identity. The idea of sharing his time with something so structured felt risky. By midweek, Liam found himself parked outside the community center, sipping from his thermos as he watched the afternoon light stretch across the quiet street. The familiar rumble of the laundromat dryers drifted through his thoughts, grounding him in his usual routine. His phone buzzed on the dashboard. Picking it up, he saw a text from Rebecca. "Hi Liam. Just checking in. No pressure, but Michael and I are here if you'd like to chat more about the offer. Hope you're having a great week." Liam stared at the message for a long moment. He thought about Rebecca's kind smile, Michael's calm confidence, and the way their family had made him feel like more than just a stranger doing a good deed. His fingers hovered over the keyboard before he finally typed back, "Can we meet tomorrow? I have a few questions." The response came almost instantly, "Absolutely. How about lunch at the Elm Cafe? Our treat." The next day, Liam found himself seated at a cozy corner table in the bustling cafe. Rebecca and Michael arrived shortly after, greeting him warmly as they sat across from him. "Thanks for coming," Michael said. "We're glad you reached out." "I've been thinking about it," Liam admitted, folding his hands on the table. "It's a generous offer. But I have to be honest, it's a big change for me. I've been driving my cab for 10 years, and it's hard to imagine doing anything else." Rebecca nodded, her expression understanding. "That's fair. Change can be tough, especially when it feels like you're leaving something behind." Michael leaned forward, his tone reassuring. "We're not asking you to leave your cab behind. You'd still have the freedom to work the hours you want, driving the passengers you enjoy. This job would just be something to supplement that, a way to add some stability and security." Liam tilted his head, considering their words. "I'm used to working alone," he said. "Being a private driver, it's more personal. I'm not sure if I'd be comfortable with that." Rebecca smiled gently. "That's part of why we think you'd be perfect for the role. You're thoughtful, reliable, and calm under pressure. Michael needs someone like that, someone he can trust completely." Michael added, "You'd have a say in everything, Liam. The schedule, the trips, even the way we set things up. We're not looking for someone to just take orders. We're looking for a partner we can depend on." Their words resonated with Liam. For years he'd taken pride in his work, but he'd never imagined someone might see his quiet professionalism as a strength. "What if it doesn't work out?" Liam asked after a pause. Rebecca exchanged a glance with Michael before answering. "Then we'll figure it out together. No pressure, no strings attached. This is just an opportunity we'd like to offer you. The rest is up to you." Liam looked between them, their sincerity clear in their eyes. It wasn't just about a job, it was about trust, respect, and the chance to be part of something bigger. After a long moment, he nodded. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll give it a try." The transition into his new role was gradual but smooth. Liam spent his mornings and early afternoons driving his cab, maintaining the familiar rhythm he loved. In the evenings, he took on his new responsibilities as Michael's private driver. At first, it felt strange to be behind the wheel of someone else's car, navigating corporate offices and airport drop-offs instead of Maplewood's usual fare. But Michael's straightforward demeanor and Rebecca's encouragement made the shift easier than he'd expected. "You're a natural at this," Michael said one evening after a long day of meetings. "I don't know how I managed before you came on board." "You'd have managed fine," Liam replied modestly. "Maybe," Michael said with a smile. "But not as well." As weeks turned into months, Liam found a comfortable balance between his two roles. His mornings were filled with the unpredictable charm of cab passengers, while his evenings brought the stability of working with Michael. For the first time in years, Liam felt like his work wasn't just about getting by, it was about contributing to something meaningful. One Friday evening, Michael called Liam into his office after a particularly hectic week. "Liam, can I talk to you for a minute?" "Of course," Liam said, stepping inside. Michael gestured to a chair, and Liam sat, his curiosity piqued. "Rebecca and I have been talking," Michael began, "and we've noticed how much effort you've put into balancing your roles. We know it hasn't been easy, and we want to do something to show our appreciation." Liam frowned slightly. "You've already done more than enough." Michael shook his head with a small smile. "Let us help you upgrade your cab. You've been running it for years, and I know how much wear and tear it's taken. A newer car would make your work easier and give you some peace of mind." Liam blinked, stunned. "You want to help me buy a new cab?" "Yes," Michael said. "We'll cover the down payment, and you can handle the rest on your terms. It's the least we can do after everything you've done for us. Liam hesitated, his initial instinct to refuse bubbling up. But the gratitude in Michael's voice and the respect he'd shown made him pause. "Thank you," Liam said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Michael replied. "Just let us do this for you." The next week, Liam found himself behind the wheel of a sleek hybrid cab, its smooth ride a far cry from the rattling comfort of his old sedan. As he drove through Maplewood, he marveled at how far he'd come since that fateful autumn day when Ethan had knocked on his window. His life wasn't perfect, but it was richer now, filled with connection, opportunity, and a renewed sense of purpose. Driving his new hybrid cab felt like stepping into a new chapter of life for Liam. The quiet hum of the engine, the spacious interior, and the reliability it offered were luxuries he'd never imagined. But more than the physical comfort, it symbolized something far greater: the belief someone else had in him. The dual roles he now balanced, driving his cab in the mornings and evenings while working as Michael's private driver during the afternoons, gave Liam a newfound sense of purpose. Each day presented its own challenges, but for the first time in years, Liam felt like he wasn't just moving in circles. He was moving forward. One crisp morning, Liam picked up an older woman outside a small grocery store. She struggled with her bags as she climbed into the back seat, her frail hands trembling. "Take your time," Liam said gently, stepping out to help her load the groceries into the trunk. As they drove to her apartment, the woman chatted about her grandkids and how hard it had become to manage errands on her own. When they arrived, Liam carried the bags up to her door despite her protests. "Thank you, young man," she said with a warm smile. "It's rare to meet someone so kind these days." "It's nothing," Liam replied with a modest shrug. But as he drove away, a quiet satisfaction settled over him. Acts of kindness, however small, seemed to ripple outward, and he was beginning to see the impact they could have. Word spread about the cab driver who went out of his way to help his passengers. Elderly residents began requesting Liam specifically, knowing he'd ensure their rides were safe and comfortable. Parents with young children appreciated his patience, and college students heading to late-night study sessions found solace in his calming presence. Each passenger was a story, a fleeting connection that Liam cherished. And while he still kept his boundaries, never lingering too long or prying into their lives, he made it a point to leave each one a little better than he'd found them. At the same time, his work with Michael continued to flourish. Liam grew more confident navigating the fast-paced world of corporate logistics, and Michael began relying on him not just as a driver, but as a trusted sounding board. "You've got a way of cutting through the noise," Michael said one evening as they drove back from a meeting. "I've been in business for years, but sometimes I feel like you see things more clearly than I do." Liam chuckled. "I think driving a cab teaches you to listen. People tell you a lot when you're sitting in silence with them." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "You've got a gift for it, Liam. Never lose that." One afternoon, as Liam was parked near the community center, he noticed a young woman standing on the curb, cradling a baby. She looked exhausted, her eyes darting between her phone and the street, as though searching for a way home. Without hesitation, Liam stepped out of his cab. "Do you need a ride, ma'am?" The woman looked up, relief washing over her face. "Oh yes, I've been waiting for a bus, but it's been hours." "Come on," Liam said, opening the passenger door for her. As they drove, she explained that her baby had been unwell and she'd spent the entire day at the hospital. "It's hard doing this on your own," she said softly, glancing down at her sleeping child. Liam nodded, his voice gentle. "It's not easy, but you're doing a great job. Getting your baby to the hospital, waiting for hours, that's not easy for anyone." When they reached her apartment, the woman reached into her bag for payment, but Liam shook his head. "This one's on me," he said with a kind smile. Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me." As Liam drove away, he felt that familiar warmth in his chest. The ripple of kindness that Rebecca and Michael had started in his life was continuing to spread, and he was proud to be part of it. One evening, Liam received a text from Michael, "Can you stop by for dinner this Sunday? Rebecca insists, and Ethan would love to see you." Though Liam preferred to keep his relationships professional, he found himself smiling at the invitation. When Sunday arrived, he brought a small bouquet of flowers for Rebecca and a bag of soccer equipment for Ethan. The family welcomed him warmly, and the evening was filled with laughter, good food, and a sense of belonging that Liam hadn't felt in years. "You've become part of the family, you know," Rebecca said as they cleared the table. Liam smiled, shaking his head. "I'm just a cab driver who got lucky." Michael clapped him on the back. "You're much more than that, Liam. And I think you're finally starting to see it." Months turned into a year, and Liam's life was nearly unrecognizable from what it had been. His new hybrid cab hummed reliably as he drove through Maplewood, the sleek vehicle a far cry from his old rattling sedan. His work with Michael had grown into more than just a job. It was a partnership built on trust and mutual respect. But what surprised Liam most wasn't the changes in his work or his finances. It was the change in himself. He found joy in small, quiet moments, the way passengers smiled when he went out of his way to help, the satisfaction of knowing Michael relied on him, and the warmth he felt whenever Rebecca and Ethan waved him over for dinner. For the first time in years, Liam felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. One crisp autumn morning, as Liam waited for a passenger near the community center, he noticed a boy running toward his cab. The child's red backpack and wide, anxious eyes sparked an instant memory: Ethan, on that very first day, standing nervously by his car. But this wasn't Ethan. The boy, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, stopped short of the cab, his breath coming in short gasps. Liam rolled down the window. "Hey there, buddy, are you all right?" The boy shook his head, his lip trembling. "I'm lost," he said softly, clutching his backpack straps tightly. Liam's chest tightened, a wave of familiarity washing over him. "It's okay," he said gently, opening the passenger door. "Hop in, we'll figure this out together." The boy hesitated for a moment before climbing into the cab, his small hands fidgeting nervously in his lap. "What's your name?" Liam asked, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. "Sam," the boy replied. "All right, Sam," Liam said. "Do you know anything about where you live? A street name, a big building nearby?" Sam shook his head. "We just moved here," he whispered. "But our house is white, and there's a big garden. And we have a dog named Toby." Liam nodded, already thinking through the neighborhoods that might match the description. "That's a great start. Let's take a drive and see if anything looks familiar." As they drove, Liam kept the boy calm by asking him about his favorite games, his dog, and what he liked most about his new house. Though Sam was nervous, he opened up little by little, his voice growing steadier with each answer. After a few wrong turns, they pulled onto a quiet street with tidy gardens and tree-lined sidewalks. Sam suddenly sat up straighter, his eyes widening. "That's it," he exclaimed, pointing to a white house at the end of the block. A golden retriever barked excitedly from the yard as they approached. Liam parked and walked Sam to the front door. Before they could knock, a woman opened it, her face a mix of relief and panic. "Sam," she cried, pulling the boy into her arms. "Mom," Sam said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. The woman turned to Liam, tears brimming in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know what we would have done if you hadn't helped him." "It's what anyone would do," Liam replied, the words coming easily now. As he walked back to his cab, Liam felt a profound sense of connection, as though life had come full circle. Later that evening, Liam sat on the porch of the small house he'd finally been able to buy, a cozy cottage on the edge of town with a tidy garden and a porch swing where he could sip his tea. The autumn air was crisp, and the golden light of the setting sun painted the trees in warm hues. Rebecca and Michael had stopped by earlier to drop off some homemade cookies, and Liam had promised to join them for dinner next week. His life, once filled with solitude, was now rich with connections and meaning. As Liam rocked gently on the swing, he thought about the day Ethan had knocked on his window. That single act of kindness had set off a chain reaction, leading to opportunities he'd never expected and a life he never dared to imagine. It wasn't about grand gestures or monumental changes. It was about the small moments, helping a lost child, offering a kind word, or accepting help when it was offered. Those moments had rippled outward, touching others in ways Liam couldn't always see but knew were there. For the first time in a long while, Liam felt at peace. His work, his relationships, and his purpose had all aligned in ways he'd never thought possible. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he leaned back on the swing, a small smile playing on his lips. It had all started with a simple knock on his window,